Well, Avatar is now the fifth highest gross. Avatar 2: Way of Water is the fifth highest grossing movie of all time. It just outbeat Infinity War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't
James
say I'm
Cameron
surprised. Can't say I'm surprised, unfortunately.
got 3 of the top 5 movies.
It's still climbing.
Again, yeah.
Ugh.
It might be in theaters longer than 7 months that Top Gun Maverick had.
Well, I don't know
Uh,
if it'll have that staying
uh,
power. 'Cause
I
Top Gun had a lot of word of mouth, and
It did.
Avatar 2, I don't think has gotten nearly as much word of mouth.
Hey, welcome to this season 5 recap because we can
yeah.
use that for the cold open, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, as always, Kiki Writer.
I'm Chris Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks, and today we're going over, season 5, which was Avatar: The Way of Water, Serenity, Treasure Planet, Weathering with You, and the Netflix show Living with Yourself.
Yes, it was quite an interesting season. And to express your interest in our interest and how much you hate our opinions or how much you like them, please feel to follow us on Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, and Letterbox. We look for comments, and this is normally where we would have a big section for you guys. So
Yeah, as a matter of
Cool.
fact, writer, I do have a comment we received,
oh,
which was
interesting.
on the YouTube end. Hopefully, I'm gonna guess it. I mean, no, you know what? I'll just go with it. I'll just go with it and see what your thoughts are on it. So it's a comment from our season 3 recap from a Caitlin Lawrence saying, "I love the video. Get the results you deserve at Promo SM."
Ah, yes.
Bot.
At least we're getting
So
bots now.
thank you,
That's a
Caitlin.
step up.
I g-
That's funny.
Did you check if the account was like a new one or anything?
uh, I think that's information I should not disclose.
Oh,
I
okay.
think
You
just
could just
thanks for
click
the.
on the comment.
I think just thank you for the comment. Appreciate the feedback. They love the recap. Good to know.
It's a good
Yeah.
one to love. We had some good talks in that one, I think.
Yeah.
And
Maybe.
that's the only
It had
comment I
something
could
to do with
find.
Sprinks.
Maybe. Only comment I could find, since I run the Facebook and TikTok side of things, I did not find anything on either of those.
I
Yeah.
had nothing on Letterbox.
I got nothing but views on Pinterest and Instagram, so no comments.
Wonderful. And going with our socials right now, I'll bring up a question that I have, which writer filled me a little in on, but I'd like to talk. What is happening on the Reddit side of things? Has anyone lately checked our Reddit?
Interesting thing to
Uh,
bring up in this video. I checked it maybe a month and a half ago because I wasn't assigned it. But that is as far as I know of it. I know it exists. I've not checked up if it's gotten anything
Okay,
to
I
it.
feel a little discouraged to our audience here, and apologies that we send out um, the word to build the community through our socials to interact with what means you have, and one of the options that we list and have been stating is Reddit. But on Reddit, I don't see any posts from us. It looks like a ghost town.
oh, well, okay then.
And I don't mean to be pointing fingers, but I just was curious if anyone knew information I didn't have or whatnot.
No, no, I didn't. But I'm looking it up now because I haven't checked it.
Well, so apologize to, or I apologize, I guess, to those who thoroughly enjoy Reddit and maybe the only form of social media in fact that you do use, and we don't have much on it, if anything. So apologies from us. Uh, we have, it's come aware now, and we'll work on it.
All right. Yes. I guess I have a question to follow that one up. This one is directed specifically to writer.
Is it
All
about
more really.
ratings?
Hmm?
Is it about ratings?
No,
Okay, cool.
at least not any specific ratings. It's more of a how he would rate something. So we covered that your rating scale is mostly like 99% based off of writing. Something would have to be exceptional to affect the rating elsewhere on objective stuff. So
Mhm.
I had a random thought of, I don't know if it could go either way, authorial intent or just the bare basics of what movies are as an entertainment platform. Like, what if a movie is made with the intent of it being a serious movie, but it's poorly made to the point where you just laugh at everything? But obviously, the intent is it being a serious film. How is that? Uh, I guess rated in your view? Is it
I'm a,
purely off the rating, or the
I'm a,
intent is also a part?
I'm a huge proponent of death of the author. So, well, okay. So this is gonna get really complicated. Um, what I mean by death of the author is obviously your authorial intent doesn't matter. What matters is the product that you produce. Um, so for example, I'm trying to think, and I don't have any examples coming off the top of my head, but for example, if you intended to make an extremely serious movie, but it ends up being funny and stuff like that, that's your intent as an author wouldn't matter much in terms of my objective assessment. Um, it could feed into my subjective one. Absolutely. Like if you like, that's where like, I think this is a very poor adaptation comes in. I always go to Marvel comics or things like that as an example. Because I would argue that adaptation you could clearly mean to adapt something well is, but it's again it's also done irrelevant whether it's quality um whether it's a quality movie is its own thing. So
Okay. I guess the last little probing question for that. So, if someone is to make an action movie, and
mhm.
clearly action movies are supposed to be entertaining, engaging, maybe even blood pumping, uh, but it's one of the most boring films ever made, would that file under objective or subjective if you were to mark it down for that?
What would I be marking it down as? I'd be marking it down as being boring, or I'd be marking it down as authorial intent. I'm
That's
not
why I'm
sure.
saying it could kind of file under both because obviously they intend an action film, but it ends up being boring. But it's also the fundamental of a movie is not to be boring. It's supposed to be entertaining or teach something or anything like
Um,
that. No one wants to make a boring film. So that's kind of the fundamental of a movie as well. So
yeah,
Could I
how
it'd
touch
would
on
be.
this a
you
little?
sure
Hold on. Give
after
me a
his
second.
response?
Yeah, give me a second. No, it would still fall in the same for me. The product is what you give out. What the end product is all that will matter at the end. So I mean, I can use the Last Jedi to teach how not to make a movie or a script, but it's a I hope I'm answering this right, because or at least I hope I'm answering it in a way that you guys understand. In that, it's just the end product that matters. It's just going to boil down to that. So yes, the author, your creator, definitely intended to make an action movie, but we didn't get that. That wouldn't necessarily file into my objective assessment. I would be assessing the movie itself, if that makes sense.
Okay, so the fact that it came off as boring instead of actiony, that would still be judging the movie itself, wouldn't it? Right.
Yeah,
So that would file under objective.
that would kind of. So like I said, I'm trying to figure out like to flesh out your question a little more in a way that I can understand it in my head. So you are making a distinction between authorial intent being it being an action movie, and then it objectively isn't an action movie. Let's say it's boring.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. So is that what you mean?
In that example, yeah, it's pretty much the opposite of what is intended, but it is present in the film nonetheless. So it's not just intent, but it's also present.
Yeah. No. That would file under this is your product that you've given me. I'm going to judge it based off of that.
And Sprinks, you wanted to jump in on this topic?
I believe it's been touched on before for me. The difference, what I brought up is past experiences with things. I believe I brought that up in recap three, 3 or 2, talking about past works of Michael Giacchino and how that affects currents. And I
Mhm.
think the same could kind of fall into this, where it would be both in the sense of boring, because it would be judging not only off of what is shown, but your past experience of what you find captivating in an action. Um, so, what you find captivating in action to your subjective of enjoyment would be subjective, and finding it boring would be not only subjective, but what is also being shown of how they could go with it. And maybe it just falls under the budget and they weren't, didn't have enough for the Michael Bay size explosions or the VFX of a J.J. Abrams or what have you. But what they are capable of having, which can even fall back to, the early days of practical effects, could still be established in a way to make it captivating for your experience, which would fall under the objective of what could possibly be shown, which isn't. So I was just trying to aid, and I think it would fall under both.
Yeah, one of my follow-ups, if writer was going to say it would be subjective, is what percentage of the audience would have to agree that it came out boring to the point to where you think it would be objective? Um, if, but since it didn't go that way, I mean, I guess I could still ask it. If a movie's premise or anything regarding a movie is somewhat subjective, but the vast majority of people agree with that assessment, does that turn it objective?
I don't think so. I think it's on to yourself, which brings up the after
Um,
fact of agreeing with people or disagreeing with people, which I kind of
Well,
falls under
objective is
guilty.
supposed to be vast, broad, like everyone
I,
is
well,
agreeing, right?
let's. There's a okay. So this is gonna get we're gonna get kind of into episode zero level talks here. But objective, like we use terms to say, like, we can objectively quantify that our sun is a star because we have measurements that discern this. We have certain mathematics that apply this. My favorite one is that my favorite example in this arena, and using scientifically anyway, is that Pluto doesn't qualify as a planet anymore. It's a big thing when I was growing up because Pluto was a planet for the first half when I was younger as a kid, and then when I got old enough, Pluto was no longer a planet because our objective standards changed. So objectivity is fluid to a degree, that which we can assess whichever we're assessing. So in this instance, we have chosen to assess art objectively to a degree. We don't necessarily need people to. We don't need a majority of people to agree with our assessment, so long as we set the standard for our audience to understand. So, because obviously a lot of people still love The Last Jedi. I don't think they're fucking right. I still think it's a poorly written movie. I mean, like them personally loving it, I don't have any issue with it. It's whether they say if it's well written, that's when I take issue. Because that to me is a standard, because that's when they have ascribed a specific standard to The Last Jedi. Them personally loving it is not necessarily a standard we all can adhere to because we all love different things very, very differently. Whereas if someone says this is extremely well written, that they're then applying a standard, and then we can test that standard.
Okay. Well, I think that's the end of my initial questioning. Anyone else got something?
Oh, I got plenty, but on that matter of the discussion, I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, I'll defer to you, Sprinks, because I only got one. So,
Oh, okay. What would that be? Or is this the prime time to share? I mean, go ahead. Or
no, I mean your turn to ask a question. I was deferring to you.
oh, oh, sweet,
Yeah,
gotcha.
sorry.
That's what you meant. Sure. I'll pop my question to you, writer, because I got one for you and one for Crimson here. With ratings, writer, why is the objective that you gave Avatar, which is a 2.5, for writing mainly for how you rate objective, a difference from the 4.5 in Serenity?
You mean
I'd like to know from you what accounts that 2-point difference between the two.
okay. Okay. You mean you're speaking objectively. You're asking that?
Yes. Oh, sorry, I said 2-point difference. I meant 4.5 difference.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
figured that's what you
it's
meant.
like Serenity was 7.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
4.5 difference in
The
rating.
character work done in Serenity is more consistent with what little we have to work with. So if I'm gonna isolate Serenity in its own thing, which I don't necessarily have to do because the show exists. So, but the character work is more uh solid with what we have. It is a ensemble cast, which screen time is split up evenly enough between all the characters for us to understand them. Obviously, some characters are forgotten in the sense of like, oh, I'm gonna forget her name. I always
Inara.
forget her name. Inara. She's obviously left to the wayside because she's not at the forefront with the rest of the cast. Um, the movie does benefit from the show in that we, in theory, do have an understanding of who all the characters are when we go in, but obviously we're here for the character arc that Malcolm is on. Um, and and the trying to figure out what else. So I'm gonna actually have to ask you to specify your question a little more, because otherwise I'm just gonna go on a broad rant between characters, world building, and plot. So
Okay.
do you have a more specific question regarding that?
Not not necessarily in thought that I've had, but the fact of a 4.5 difference in your rating of solely on the writing, which, as you said, is the character, world building, and plot. I thought comparing the two in a regard of they both have past things shown with Firefly for Serenity and Avatar 1 for Avatar 2, and just how, if you're basing it off of what's already past shown to establish a world and characters, how it went about in a quote unquote sequel for each. And the difference
Okay.
of the 4.5 difference is what I was curious on. And because to me,
Okay.
that
So
seemed pretty much a,
you're more interested then in what Avatar did worse, I guess, than Serenity.
yeah, or what Serenity did better than ever.
Okay.
So,
All right. Thank you for the clarification. I am also going to add the caveat that I've only seen The Way of Water once, and I do intend to watch it again because I've seen a lot of stuff on it now, and I still want to tend to watch it again. And my theater experience wasn't great, and I only watched it in 2D, which I didn't get the drug trip everyone else went on. So caveats here. I'm going to lay it out now. Um, all right. I'm going to start with Quaritch. Quaritch was going from Avatar 1 to Avatar 2, had a very, very specific set of character traits. He was a serviceable bad guy, and in his own way in Avatar 1, was a good foil for Jake in terms of being a badass. In Avatar 2, he's more nerfed. It's He's out of character in the sense that he got dumber between the films. Um, we kind of, I think we alluded it during the podcast that it leans towards more character assassination than it does him being intact. Or at least I alluded to that in the podcast. Jake is fine. I I have a lot of questions about his leadership. Uh, his leadership skills with the Navi are very problematic, but I do think that his the strength of that movie comes in the bond with his family. I do think that the characters themselves. I'm trying to avoid going on a rambling here because I don't want to jump between everything. Um, so in the case of Jake Sully, his arc, while repetitive in comparison to the first film, is in a different context, which does help him to a degree. Uh, the issues that I mostly take with him is he has no regard for the consequences of his own actions, and in the sense that like he abandons his original tribe. Um, the new tribe, he's also endangering the new tribe just by being there, and the fact that he doesn't figure this out sooner is a problem because a marine, the entire context of his character is built on he knows how humans think, and he's able to therefore react to them and plan ahead of them, or try to do something about it. Which in that movie he doesn't uh, do that outside of the opening. Um, I think the kids, Jake Sully's kids are um, all serviceable to a degree. I don't understand the AOA magic system that's happening with Kiri.
Yeah.
You can tell I don't remember the character names very well. I don't really understand that. So that bleeds into world building error with her. I think in isolation, she's fine. She's an okay character. I think Jake's second son, the son that actually has a character to him,
Loak.
yeah, Loak, that one actually has a character arc with him. He's also mostly okay. Again, most of his stumbles are usually to him being stupid or to him being young and naive, and that's a fine line to walk. I don't know if they would necessarily succeeded with that. Um,
Okay, so to help, I guess, just to answer the question, the faults and flaws of the characters shown from established beforehand in Avatar 1 in Avatar 2 outweigh and are more promptly shown in a, I guess, a unsuccessful way, because you shouldn't show, flaws to a character, in a
no, no,
regard
you can
unpurposefully.
show flaws too. You can show character flaws, but in this instance, I'm assuming you mean like inconsistencies.
Yes,
Yeah,
overwhelmingly more for a 4.5 difference compared that to Serenity and the past of Firefly.
yeah. There's a lot of there's inconsistencies with in way like I mean Quaritch is the one I pick on the most because that was the most egregious. And like I said, the kids have their arcs within the movie, so it's kind of hard to judge them based off of previous installments because they don't exist. I would say a lot of initiative is also taken from oh god, what's her name? Jake's wife. Zoe Saldana's character. There we go.
Neytiri.
Yeah, she's we kind of agree she's criminally underutilized, but the problem is we don't really have much to go on with her. Avatar introduces a lot of good concepts, but the problem is they don't really follow through with them. They might. This could all be retroactively fixed with Avatar 3 and 4, whatever, how many installments we're getting. As it is right now, though, it's lacking. And I think so that's a lot of what feeds into the point difference. I think the other aspect of it is world building because I complained a lot about the world building during the podcast. Um, Serenity, it was more hyper focused on specific aspect of the world building because I can put out a few lines of dialogue to fix Serenity's world building problems. Whereas in I feel like I would have to do some like full blown script rewrites for world building work in Way of Water. So that to me is a clear like I guess indication of I guess difference in quality is how I would say it. And then beat for beat. Plot wise, I think Serenity presents a more interesting film, but that's personal. In terms of writing, I think Serenity has more connective tissues that go from one place to the other. Whereas in The Way of Water, there's more conveniences that a lot for the plot to continue.
Okay.
Sorry, I that got really long, and I hope I
No, I think
articulated it
yeah,
well.
you got your point across. This probably got brought up in the Serenity episode, but just for clarification, writer, who do you believe was the protagonist of Serenity?
Um,
Just so it can be made as a comparison to Jake Sully.
uh, it would probably be Mal. It's hard to pick from an ensemble cast. It'd probably be Mal, or it would be River.
Okay. All right,
Um,
and that settles my question on that then.
well, since we are currently, I guess, doing the rating questions, the one I had was oddly enough also for writer and also an avatar, but on his subjective. That one surprised me when you said 3.5 during the podcast, and I've sat on it, and I still feel like it seems a little strange because this is tied for your second lowest subjective score. First
As
being
as
Secret Garden, and
yeah.
second being Christmas of the Cranks. So I was curious if you've stewed on that and thought you were harsh, or if you think you still justified in how you felt within it or anything.
As I said, my theater experience was bad. Like, on top of not seeing it in 3D, I didn't have a good theater experience. So, like I said, that's purely subjective. That's just that definitely feeds into the emotions that I felt while I was currently watching it. That is subject to change.
Terms may apply.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess check in
And
next recap, and we can go over that if we don't forget to see if that's changed at all.
If I
if
go
you
see it
want
again,
Yeah,
to
if
yeah.
see
you've
it,
seen it,
yeah.
yeah.
Although I'll
And
I'll bring it up naturally when if I've seen it, because that's usually what I do. I go back and correct my stuff if I've seen it more than once and things like that. So,
Gotcha. Okie doke. That was wow. Comparing those two questions, short and lengthy.
well, since I think we're still technically on the rating questions, Ryder, did you have any, I guess, writing questions or surprises through this season?
surprises? No. I do have some clarifying questions for good old Sprinks, if he's willing.
Heyo. Yeah. What you got?
Um, yeah. So your objective for Avatar is a 6.5. I have a guess as to why it's lower on the lower end of things for you because it's but I obviously want to ask you. Um, is I guess with feeding into that a little bit, I think it was brought up earlier. You tend to give practical a higher objective score over visual effects. At least that was how it was framed earlier on.
Is that a pattern that's been shown?
Um, you brought it up once. I don't know when or how,
Okay.
so I
I mean, that's
I think it was
subjective
Mr. and
my
Mrs.
preference.
Smith. I think that was brought up.
Yeah.
yeah, you brought it up then. So I guess I'm more curious as to why your avatar objective is so low.
In simply
Mostly
for the
because
spans of visual.
in comparison to what you normally rate objective things. Um, because I'm trying to think of a good
Okay.
example with
Okay. So the
this.
demerits of points for Avatar to be a 6.5 is what you're asking. What is the negatives of it?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, it's kind of what I'm asking. I'm curious about it because comparing it to other things that are 6.5, I I'm surprised that you would rate Avatar so low in terms of your objective with how I understand your standard to work now.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. Some of the cinematography, first on, wasn't, and I don't mean to repeat myself off of the podcast already of Avatar. I'm sure more full and depth
Yeah.
understanding comes from that rating. But
Yeah, we
that
all
was
defer to
it.
the podcast when it
Yeah,
comes to our rating.
but that was weeks ago of recording, and I can't pull that off the top of my head. So I'll go off of what I can recall. So I apologize if
Mhm,
there's slight differences between this and there.
mhm,
So what I can recall is the cinematography for being in the water was adequate, but sometimes a little nauseating for movement, especially in the water. And then again with the action scenes at the end, falling up and down over waves and across rocks, and going with not only banshees but the water creatures. So a little of that was nauseating for the cinematography, where I think a still or a over the shoulder or something could have been a little more creatively used. Lighting, I don't really have a problem with the lighting. I do kind of follow with what you said on the world building and characters. I agree with Corch. Yes, he is a mindset before character because of the mind thing and everything, and he's now in an avatar body, and it's his mission and yada yada. Not the same character, um, but he is certainly different, and it's a way to get the actor and employee of the character back into to make a familiarity, so it's not a different villain. I think the whole little bit they had about the city they're building is not talked about enough. Even with just a simple scene of like a train heist, which goes with that because this is supplies to the city. I think it was just very small to hint at a future. I think the kids are okay. Some are better than the others. I think Spider was only really used as an emotional ploy for Corch at the very end. Natiri was underutilized. Um, the tribe people, I think they're all fine. The chief, his wife, um, the children, that's fine. The world building of the eclipse and cycle really had a problem with that. I don't know if necessarily I'm out of line of that, but I think that was a problem to the world. Um, I think the action was good. Action was good. I think the visuals were really good, especially for the 3D effects since I saw it in 3D. Um, I don't know necessarily any practicals that were used. Maybe for some of the human shots and scenes, but I think the rest of it was all
Uh,
CGI.
I I do actually. I think you brought this up during our actual podcast. I actually meant to bring it up because I saw something about it, and I obviously didn't have a chance to verify it. But the shot of like him tying
The
the
band
saddle
around his
around
arm?
his wrist,
Yeah.
that super awesome shot or whatever. I was told that's practical. I have no idea how, but I was told it was practical. So I actually want to go verify that and kind of touch base with you a little bit more on that.
Okay,
I also heard that
if it's
somewhere.
in that regard of being practical, so all of that was, I guess, just his hand was in a mocap suit, to digitalize the green or digitalize the blue skin, I guess. Um, then that is pretty astonishing to make me think of scenes that were completely computer generated that were not. So kudos to them. The only thing is that's not a really easy thing to spot, um, with the modern
Mhm.
technology of computer generated nowadays. Another thing that comes to my mind is the camera, not only cinematography of shots used, but the difference that can be spotted when they swap cameras. To me, that's a big thing. Seeing the difference between the, oh god, I can't remember the names, but the one built for 3D and the one that wasn't, and you can tell which scenes are which. Another comparison is in the Mission Impossible Fallout. They go widescreen to full screen back and forth through an action sequence. Very nauseating.
Ah, that
Uh,
was very weird. The only odd shots in that movie.
yeah, I feel that same way with this in Avatar of them jumping between the cameras because I can spot it.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, so
Alright.
not
Yeah,
just on.
that makes more sense to me because, like, with Mission Impossible Fallout was so obvious that I noticed, but I genuinely didn't notice when I was watching,
Yeah,
Avatar, so
it may be more easier seen in 3D since the
maybe.
other camera's
Yeah.
built for it, but I don't really know. But other than just talking about the plot, character, and world building, which fits under writing, but also the cinematography, shots, that what. So hopefully that answers your question for 6.5.
Okay. Yeah, that did. So, that was my main one that I had today.
Sweet,
Uh,
cool. Well, I got a question for Crimson.
I love questions.
Crimson, what did living with yourself do that The Way of Water didn't in terms of positive objective rating for you?
Let's
From a
so
4.5 on Avatar versus a 7.
okay. Lots of Avatar today.
Well, I'm curious,
Um,
well, Avatar had some pretty low scores given, I
yeah.
guess. So, what did living with yourself objectively do better, positively?
Um, so since we talked Avatar to death, and I agree with the world building and character stuff, we'll just leave Avatar at that point. Well, living with
listen to that.
yourself, yeah, did better to me in regards is the characters, what few there are, um, specifically Paul Rudd and his wife and clone. All their motivations made sense for what they were doing for the most part. Um, at least I'm trying to remember. I don't remember the main Paul Rudd's stuff other than he was just kind of trying to be lazy, which, with him being a workaholic and not enjoying his life, works anyways. Uh, but the character motivations made sense. The They did a good job not going too in depth of the rules of the cloning because we already brought up several potential problems with the cloning itself, and I think if they brought up more rules to it, it would have made it worse.
Mhm.
As we brought up the cloning of clones and stuff like that. So that's more the world building being not the best, but it wasn't horrible. It could have been worse. Um, the the presentation part of the story, I think you brought up that you liked that they stuck with it and it wasn't just some side thing. It was kind of a main plot thread through it. and I agree that they stuck through. I think they could have utilized the boss or the guy they were trying to sell the tower for, whatever. The guy who gave the pig.
Oh,
I
the
think they
story
could
he
have,
gave. Yeah.
yeah, because he seemed like a pretty good character, and we only got him in one scene. And the whole pig thing was it was brought back for nothing. There was a fake out in the beginning because you could construe that the box had his clone in it or whatever. But other than that, it was nothing, just wasted time. So I guess to wrap it all up, character motivations make sense. They don't really break character, and the plot is understandable. Meanwhile, we brought up all the world building problems and the character problems with Avatar already.
Yeah.
That
Okay. Did any Avatar character break character to you?
I seem to have the biggest issue with Jake out of everyone when we were talking about it. How he kept running from his problems instead of fighting, which is what we know of him from the first movie. Your guys' reasoning behind it was that the time has passed. He's got a family now. He's a different person. I would
They
have liked to have
get
seen
a
more
yeah, they get a
of
lot
that.
of caveat for that time space, but I agree that there should be more in for us to interpret, you know?
So I think Jake changed too much without us seeing uh, the time in between because we got some flashbacks and we talked about how they went through that a little too fast
Something
considering how long the movie was.
I think that helps aid that as well for you, Crimson, is how Jake interacts with his children. Is he treats them like a squad, so he's still in that like military mindset.
Military, yeah.
Yeah, we definitely needed to see him not doing that first, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agreed with the Quaritch stuff. Um, Naturi, same, underutilized. She would have been pretty good. The kids, we got Loak. I think he was fine. Usually the troublesome kids bug me, but he was okay. The youngest one did not have to be in this movie. I'm sure there's plans for the other movies for that child, but in this film was not necessary. The
No,
older brother,
I'll tell you exactly why the young one's supposed to be there. They were specifically there to get captured again.
yeah, the older brother, he didn't really contribute much other than I'm the responsible older brother, and that's it. Uh,
Oh, I
so
think it was
that's
also put in there to show that someone could die.
well,
Someone did
it's
die.
that, but it's a person that no one cared about. I'm curious, percentage wise, if I could ask God a question about this movie, percentage wise, how many people cried at his death? 1%. What a waste of a question to God. Good day. Um, so yeah, I just think Avatar pretty much either was worse in every scenario comparatively, or just bad in certain scenarios.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I guess I'll bring up favorite and least favorite scene. Um, who thinks they got something they could say first?
Oh boy.
favorite and least favorite scene.
Sure, I'll go.
Uh,
A scene
Okay,
that comes off
Springs.
the top of my head looking at these five choices that I think is one of my favorites is the ending conversation of Jim and John Silver when John Silver leaves the ship at the end
Treasure Planet.
in Treasure
Yeah,
Planet.
that's a
Yeah.
good one. It's a good scene. Good choice.
Uh,
I Crimson, you first.
all right. This one's a little difficult because for me, it's probably something in Serenity. It's probably something that it would be on nobody else's list, and it's not even really a full scene. It's just a line said by River saying, "I swallowed a bug." Hilarious, and nothing at the same time. Because I'm or same thing with Weathering with You. Not a scene, but a little snippet. The cop running down the street. Uh, awesome. Best part of that movie.
That's a good scene.
Uh, yeah. Hopefully that gave you enough time, Ryder. You got something?
I got two actually. Yeah. My favorite scenes are the opening on Serenity when we cut back to the ship, and we got that super like awe-inspiring music before something goes wrong and they're burning in on entry to the planet. And then we kind of have our walkthrough of the ship and we're introduced to our characters in a very like organic way. I think that scene to me is great because it's everything. I'm gonna pick on Lightyear because we've covered it. It's everything that they tried to do with Lightyear when he was 100% in Lightyear mode, when he was cracking jokes and stuff about disliking rookies and stuff like that when we were first introduced to him. This scene is everything that that scene tried to do, which is all the characters are 100% themselves, and they're all reacting naturally to something going wrong in their environment. So they play off each other very well. It was a nice hook to pull you in the movie. At least I think it was. Um, and my other one is probably going to be Weathering with You. I actually really liked all of them walking around the city at night after they've run away together.
Well, if Ryder gets two, then I got another one.
Yeah, no, yeah, I just couldn't pick between the two, so I went through. Yeah, go ahead, Springs.
Uh, Thinking it over a little more, I have one I don't like, and I'll go with that to wade the waters here. Hint, hint. Avatar. When Spider goes from the bridge all the way down to the deck, did not like that scene. It
Oh,
was
just
worse
like in
off.
Weathering with You
It's
when you ran
worse
through the
off than
police
Weathering with
station.
You. Oh my god, there are so many more guards. There's so many more people present in the Avatar one.
Yeah.
That no.
Yeah, the Avatar one is worse. Sadly, I have to agree. And don't get me wrong, I do think the police station scene in Weathering with You is absolutely horrible and horrendous. That just lets you know how much I think of the Avatar one.
And then another scene that I do really like is the dance scene in Living with Yourself when the wife actually does remember the dance and knew it all along and shares the
Yeah, that
connection, and it's
was
very sweet and nice.
nice twist based on our expectations. That was good.
She's a
Uh,
homewrecker cheating on her husband with her husband. It's
That well.
yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah. Did you got a least favorite one, Crimson?
A least favorite scene, it would probably be Weathering with You when I don't remember the main character's name, but when he pointed his gun at his friend, and we had a long talk
Oh,
about that during
yeah.
the podcast.
Yeah, we
That was
did.
probably my least favorite scene across these 5 projects.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't pick. I can't pick. I don't have any issues with that scene. I mean, getting there is the problem. I don't have the issues with the scene. I think in my head, but I don't remember what I said during the podcast. So whatever I said there was much more fresh in my head. So I stand by that. I'm gonna go with least favorite. Ooh, I think I'm gonna go with uh
No stealing.
Spider breaking the controls of the ship in Avatar. How they just let him do that, and how he just escapes. No, makes no fucking sense.
You know
So,
what? My second bad choice is Spider saving Quaritch and leaving the Solis to die.
All right, all right,
Uh,
all right. We get it. None of us like Spider. Cool, we get it.
And here's the thing: I actually think Spider would be an interesting character. I just think they wasted him. Like
He's
I
totally
actually
wasted.
like the
They made him so
I
bad.
love the I love the concept of Spider a lot. My issue is that the world building was fucking terrible, and the world literally has plot armor for him.
They butchered the boy.
They massacred my poor boy.
you just answered the question I was going to ask after this.
Oh, worst character? Well, hang
No,
on now. Oh,
most wasted potential of a character across these.
oh, Spider.
Oh, Spider.
Easy.
Easy.
People could
Yeah,
argue in the comments that
I
there's
still
other
would have said
options, but
Pigman. Uh,
who?
the guy Weathering with You, the guy who gave the pig. 'Cause he
Oh,
seemed like he was going to be a cool character, but he was wasted potential, I think.
I think you mean Living with
Uh,
Yourself. I think you
What I
said
say?
Weathering with You.
yeah.
Oh, I did.
Yeah,
Living with
Yes, you did.
Yourself.
gotcha.
Yeah.
They both
Yeah,
got
I
you
can
in
agree.
it.
I can agree with
Okay.
that.
Alright. Um, I guess as a bit of a break from our usual questions, I have started reading the Secret Garden book.
Hey,
Uh,
Yes.
I can talk a little bit about that. Um, I am enjoying the book more than I did the movie. thankfully. I think the characters are. It's because I think it actually does help that it's 100% the perspective on God, I already forgot her name. It's not
Mary.
Mary? Yeah, it is Mary, okay. Martha's the maid.
Yes.
Okay. It helps because the book is 100% from her perspective, so we don't really leave her perspective. So, the growth isn't as sudden to me, or isn't as sudden, as I found it or as jarring as it was to me in the movie. Thus far, her slowly becoming like a not a brat. Um, there are also some differences that I thought were interesting. Everyone is wiped out by the plague, not an earthquake, at the start of the book, instead of in comparison to the movie, which is an earthquake. Another interesting aspect is I my favorite scene in comparison to the book and the movie right now is actually the jump rope scene. Because in the movie, it's kind of just a thing that happens. Martha gives Mary a jump rope. Um, in the book, there's a little more build up to her getting a gift, and it was also a little more impactful for me in the book because Martha explicitly states that it's a gift to Mary from both her and her family. Which I think for me implied a lot more character for Martha and who she is, because her whole family, in a way, cares for Mary. Because Martha spent her vacation talking about Mary to her family. Um, and I think it's a little nuance like that. That's starting to compound into why I think I didn't enjoy the movie as much. Because it's adding a lot more flesh to the world around it. Um, and I haven't met the uncle yet, in the book, so I will. That's TBD for next time. The book will be done by next time we do a recap. And I'll probably have more thorough notes on it. But yeah, I overall I do actually think the book is better than the movie. And I'm not surprised by that, but it's a very character focused film. But I did feel like it was missing certain elements that I think the book is answering almost. Because I'm trying to compare in my head where like the movie could have made a specific change to add more flesh to the characters. Like I have not met Martha's family in the book, and I don't think I ever will at this rate. But the slight tweak to the scene about it being a gift from Martha and her whole family, the giving Mary the jump rope, that is something that I think adds a layer to the world as well as to Martha's character without needing to change much. So I think that's kind of, if I were to make a guess as to how I'm going to feel at the end of the book, it's going to be small things like that that compound into why I'm enjoying the book more than I did the movie.
Uh, do they show other ways that Mary's like a brat? Because in the movie, it's like, I can't dress myself or dress me. Uh, she doesn't want the
Yes,
food.
yeah, they do more elaborate things. So actually, the whole food thing, it came in the classic three for the book. So she starts out not eating it. The second time, Martha convinces her to eat a bite of it, and then eventually she eats it of her own volition. It came in threes. So there's actually more flesh to that as well. So the conversion of her, like I said, from her being a brat to like a more amenable child is smoother, which I'm enjoying more. I think. Um, we have her tantrum. She snaps at Medlock in the book, which was hilarious to read, by the way. um, but
Being that this is based off a book, I'm curious if the other versions of the films take more or less from the book itself. So since this
I'm
did happen in the 1993 version we watched and reviewed, it could happen in a different one.
I'm
yeah,
going to assume the old one, the one from the '60s, is probably more faithful. They tend to be those older films,
maybe.
so that would be interesting to see.
hmm But so yeah. Do you have any specific questions thus far for me? I guess on the book Crimson, because I know this is your baby. I guess so.
I
Secret
mean,
Garden was your pick.
it was my pick. You haven't even met the uncle yet. So how far are you in the book?
I'm 80 pages in. She just found the garden. By the way, I also forgot to mention this, the animals have a little more of an ethereal role. She's much more talkative with the animals. So like we still have the robin that we follow in the book, but the robin is the one that actually finds the key to the garden. So it isn't something
Oh,
that's in her mother's room.
okay.
So the animals play a more Disney. I'm gonna put quotes Disney role where they are like companions almost while she's outside. Um, I think it adds to the fairy tale vibe of the book a lot. Um, just to where I left off, actually just gonna pull up my bookmark right now and tell you exactly where I left off. I think I left off just before we met the other lord, his son.
Oh, Colin.
Yeah,
It's,
I think I left off just before we meet him.
lots of stuff yet to cover then.
Yes, this is true. I'm like almost halfway through the book, so the back half of this book is gonna be thick with character stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely differently paced than the movie. Because we meet Colin, I think, before the halfway point. But no, I'll save any potential questions for when you finish the book.
All right,
We
fair
haven't
enough.
gotten to the juicy bits yet.
That's true.
Sprix, did you have any more questions?
On Ryder reading The Secret Garden? Nope, not really.
I just meant in general.
Oh, in general. No, those were the two specific ones I had for you two, that I wrote down to ask. The rest are just kind of the generic ones that we go over, at least unless you two have any more specifics.
No, I'm out of specifics.
I don't have any specifics, so we could just go down our generic ones, I guess.
Sweet, Crimson, I know how much you love going over that, so go ahead.
Oh, all right. Hmm. I think this one will be harder, so I'll just say favorite character instead of least favorite, because that one probably seems easier to pinpoint.
Favorite character.
Favorite character.
uh,
Ooh, that's a toughie, actually. Why not I not go first? Ryder, what do you think?
okay, sure. Mine was pretty easy. It's between Silverhand and Mal.
John Silver from Treasure Planet?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. John Silver from Treasure Planet or Malcolm from Serenity. In terms of favorite characters, uh,
Uh, okay, and then for me, it would probably be Jane from Serenity.
Jane. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it wouldn't technically be from Serenity itself, but since it's connected to Firefly, it's the same
yeah,
character. So
fair enough.
Jane. But if we're going purely off the movie, then it wouldn't be Jane. It would probably be across all these.
Yeah. Hear me now, quote me later, audience. I'm getting Crimson Jane's beanie from Firefly.
It's the orange hat. Um, what was the little globber guy in
Morph.
Treasure Planet? Morph. He would be a follow up to Malcolm, which would be my backup to Jane. So he'd be my third
Jane,
choice.
Malcolm, and Morph.
Yeah.
Wow.
What an odd group, but I love it. Spikes you up.
All right. It's the two that come to mind is John Silver from Treasure Planet. 'Cause I really like that turn of bad guy, good guy, anti-hero, that whole thing to him. I like, and Miles from Living with Yourself. Not the clone,
Not
just
clone.
just
Yeah,
Miles.
Miles.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's a
I,
good array of
I
characters.
thought about someone for Serenity, but unfortunately, I think the movie alters them too much away from the show. Which was my thing on
Was that
Serenity
Simon?
for subjective was the fact that it takes away a lot of the Western aspect to kind of give it its own thing.
if we got a
Its own
trilogy, I
identity.
guarantee you would have had some Western in there.
Yes, I think they are better. The characters are better in the show, in my opinion.
I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Uh, I guess if no one else has anything else, we'll do the final question
Oh boy,
of
final
how the
question time.
season went. That's
Well,
our closing question,
it wasn't
typically.
planned, and I guess Weathering with You is the one that kind of stands out the most. But it's weird that this is kind of a sci-fi heavy season.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
got a lot of sci-fi elements in it. I'd
different
argue
kinds of sci-fi.
I'd argue Weathering with You is more fantasy than sci-fi, but it has that like weird twist to in the way that like Living with You has a weird twist on something that is a normal concept. Weathering with You also does the same thing. It's just otherwise it is an otherwise mundane living with one particular aspect that's changed.
The Sunshine Girl story, I do believe, fits more in the fantasy, but the whole connection to weather and everything, I think, falls into the science aspect of science fiction.
How?
Is
It's
weather not a
the way
science?
they yeah the way they explain it in the movie that it's essentially magic. What part of the weathering being controlled by people would be science?
The just the fact that it's a uh, the I'm at a loss for words.
What would
I
Avatar: The Last Airbender be science fiction because they control elements and kind of same thing?
No, I don't mean for the Sunshine Girl herself, the controlling of the weather. I mean the aspect of a weather change and how it affects everything else. Uh, the the water droplets being like sentient little fish kind of thing is, yes, they tie it all with magic and a lot of things, magic and science, the differences. Um, but it's never really shown of a God. I don't know the name of the actual scientists that do weather, but if it was shown a viewpoint,
Meteorologist.
if it was shown a viewpoint from one of those on how they reacted to everything going on in the story, I think that would have been
Actually,
interesting. But
They had the news people covering, right?
they actually do have a meteorologist in the movie. It was very brief, but they interviewed him for the
oh, the guy on the computer, he was
yeah.
in his computer room. Okay,
So they do touch on it, I guess in regards to that. So
okay. As I said, it's the standalone caveat kind of added this list here, but
yeah, it was an interesting season. I had a lot of fun. I think with it. Avatar being the exception. Again, not really the movie's fault, but that's just where it is. Unfortunately, until I rewatch it again. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. It
I
was
think the
nice
season went
mix of
well.
like yeah, I think it went well. I think my I had a it was a lot of I can't say it was a lot of mundane light living, but I guess I'm realizing with this season I have a soft spot for mundane living with a twist. So that's why I enjoyed living with yourself in the same way I enjoyed weathering with you a lot. It's just it's normal people with a twist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah, Jinx.
which is why they're off by 1.5 difference in subjective.
Yeah.
Okay, wait,
I mean, they're both
that's me.
pretty high
Yeah,
for
Yeah.
that's two difference. But yeah, for you, writer, yeah, two difference. I think, as I said, I don't think, in my opinion, this is our best season. Um, I think a caveat to that is simply for Serenity being chosen as a loose end tied up because of the Firefly we've covered previous, which is a nice bow to have in this season, but um, the variety could have been changed due to a difference of that.
yeah.
We had two animations. We had
Sorry if we want to include Avatar.
yeah, 2.5. And 11 with yourself a standalone season. Yeah, yeah. As I said, went well.
Shall I read this off?
Uh,
Oh man,
yeah.
that time already?
Make sure not to leave us behind or anything.
Yeah,
Okay,
Before we
whoa,
hit
whoa,
this
whoa, whoa,
outro.
hang on. This is usually we do the hints things, but I think we can actually explain since we're actually doing a themed season coming up.
Oh, yeah, you can smell the shite from here.
Okay, well,
Yeah. Okay.
season
Go ahead. Go
six,
ahead.
season six, we're actually taking a theming to the season coming up, and Crimson's the one who pointed out to us that he saw that the average scores of our ratings, everything seemed relatively high above that 5, mark on our ratings. So he thought that it might be best to go over a season of things we don't like or don't enjoy. So if I can speak, each of us will be choosing a film that we dislike and to go over and sharing amongst the midst to see how things vary on our different points of view.
Yeah, something I might despise, others might love. Who knows?
Yeah, we shall certainly see where this journey takes us. Oh God, here we go again.
And then I will say the big project, that's a surprise. So we keep that surprise
Yeah,
because we all have to decide on that. It's not a I mean, someone will host it, you already know that, but I mean, it's not
Yeah,
a single chosen thing, so that will keep in the shadows for now until that comes around.
yeah. Uh, all righty.
Okay, yeah,
Uh,
Reddit, go.
okay. All right. Well, as always, you can find us on Anchor, Spotify, Pocket Casts, Amazon. Oh my God, I forgot them. Hold on.
Spotify, Samsung,
Yeah, Samsung. Thank you. Samsung,
Google.
Overcast, Google Podcasts, and Castbox, and Pocket Casts. Yeah, there we go. See, nailed it. And feel free to like, comment, and subscribe in our socials. We look forward to reading comments. Tell us tell me how much my opinion sucks, or tell me how you love Sprinks' opinion,
Actually,
and we will
well, not
heavily cover it.
yeah, please let us, any comments or questions you have for us at the pod, anything you'd like to see us get covered, um, anything in that regard, even insults, put in some insults if you'd like. It doesn't have to all be positive. Not a perfect
Yeah,
world. But yeah, something to give us more coverage and content to bring to you for the next recap.
yeah. And as always, I have been a geeky writer,
I'm Jun Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks.
and we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Toodaloo.